Good evening and a very warm welcome to everyone who's present here and to our online viewers who are listening to us on webcast, Facebook and YouTube. A very warm welcome to all of you too. And today is a special evening because the topic that we're going to share today is very interesting and something which we are experiencing every day, I think so. Assumptions. Do you all make assumptions? Do we all make assumptions? We do. And how often do we do that? Every second, I think so. So, what are the side effects of assumptions and how we can try to go beyond assuming things? And for this topic, we have our special guest speaker, Sister Kanan Patel. She's come all the way from South Africa with us. She's born and brought up in Kenya, and she's been practicing meditation for over 30 years now and has just full of wisdom, richness, very easy nature, works amazingly well with the youth of the country and creates young leaders as well. We've got a good expertise with us today, and I would like to invite her to share her wisdom, her thoughts on how we can get over assumptions and the side effects of assumption. Over to you, sister.
So, thank you, Sister Neeti, for that lovely introduction and also inviting me to the talk, your Tuesday evening talks, which are very famous here, and I'm honored to be on the platform. It's been going on for 25 years, right? Yeah, non-stop, so that's quite powerful on its own. And when I heard about this topic last week, I was, saying, well, I have never spoken on this topic before. So it was something that I was researching every day, assumption, and I would ask quite a few, whoever was in front of me, what do you think about this word? And what came up was this, that where there's assumption, we all know that there's pain, right? And for those who don't know the word assumption meaning I think of something in my imagination, but in reality, in proof, it's not true. Yes, what I think, one thing of the past, or probably something someone said, or probably what I saw with my eyes, and then I decided to connect with it from my experience of the past in some way, then I can be wrong. Yes. And so assumptions in life happen in many ways. So how often we make assumptions when we see people, right? How often we make assumptions when we see food? How often we make assumptions when we see our timetables or see other people's timetables? How often we make assumptions when we look at countries or we look at news that has been written by human beings? So how often we make assumptions when, we are also sitting and having conversations and making plans for events, thinking that the same person that we've been working for X number of years will have the same response, and yet they haven't had the same response. So on many levels, when there's assumptions, the side effect of that is quite painful. It's not so nice, because on one level, you've held on to something in your mind that you think is true, and you act upon it, or you speak about it, or you even make decisions based on it, and you realize later you regretted it because it's not true. And then after that, you would have to, if you made a big mistake, you'd have to ask for forgiveness. You'd have to make up. You'd have to be apologetic, and you'd have to really create love and acceptance and understanding after that. So it's interesting that when I see with these eyes, the two eyes, and I hear with these ears, how often am I aware that there is a possibility that I could be wrong in understanding, there is a possibility that I may not have heard it in the right light. And so I need to be, there's one word that struck me today, open to antidote to assumption. If you don't want assumptions in your life, I love this word, just be open to being wrong, to be open to being right also. And so most often what we do is when we have a closed mind, a limited mind, when we assume someone's color of skin and we think, well, X, Y, and Z, and we just box it in that direction, how often we hurt the soul. It's not nice, is it? Right? And so where I assume something based on what I see with my eyes and hear with my ears from, I can automatically understand that that's limitation. But what is it that will take me further? How is it that I will go and become free from assuming? One thing, let me be open. How can I be open? One of the most beautiful spiritual methods that we learn here at the Brahma Kumaris is to ask this one question, who am I? It's very famous here, who am I? And the answer is, I'm a being, a soul, a light, an energy that drives this body, this human, a human being. So the human that is the physical side, and the being that is the spiritual side, the light, the energy. And when you don't understand light and energy well, perhaps maybe we can look at laughter. When anyone laughs, can you tell whether that person who laughed is of a particular age? Can you tell the age from the person's laughter? You can't. Can you tell which country they're from when they laugh? You can't. So even laughter, any person in the world laughs, right? Cannot judge it, cannot assume where it's coming from. And so similarly, when someone cries, can you tell that soul is crying? What type of person that soul is on a physical, what human it is? Can you tell which religion they're from when they cry? Can you tell why they are crying? You can't. You can't analyze that crying. You just know that that soul is crying, is in pain. It's not a happy vibration. It's not a happy emotion, right? And so when there's a crying experience, you know that soul needs help. And these are the two feelings that we need to really touch base on and understand that that's human emotion, that's universal. And when we understand that, then that cuts across all limits that we place on ourselves when we see each other. It takes me back to also identity in a very real way, where when I was serving in Botswana, that's a country bordering South Africa, and we'd been invited by the Ministry of Home Affairs to do a beautiful wellness session in the morning, 7:30 to 8, for their 30 immigration officers. And the topic that we took up for them was the passport of the soul. That what is the identity of that one which is beyond the body? We look at the passport of the body, that's easy, isn't it? And you can see that that so-and-so is national of such and such a country, and that body such and such a height, has such and such eye color, has such and such a time of birth, that body was born. So we have the passport, of the body. But what's the passport of the soul? And when you understand that the passport of the soul is one, we're all light and being of peace, then it's easy for us to then make clear decisions based on the different passports of the body that come in front of me. And I don't need to get stressed. I don't need to get frustrated. I don't need to fall into judgment or beliefs that, can create miscommunication, right? And they were so relieved. They were so relieved to know that all of us, 8 billion of us on this planet, have one passport eternally. And so, how would you understand peace then? How would you say that a soul is peaceful? How would that be proved? How would one believe that all of us are beings of peace? Well, very easy. Can you be angry for 24 hours? One question. Can you keep crying for 24 hours? Not easy. Hard job, isn't it? Yes? So why is it hard? Because it's not natural. It's not who we are. It's not what life is about. But can you be peaceful and quiet for 24 hours? Yes, you can. Isn't it interesting? And therefore, the soul's natural quality is peace. Because we can easily stay there for 24 hours. We don't need to make effort. And so when my belief system shifts, that it's not natural to be angry, it's not natural to be in fear, it's not natural to cry, can't do that for 24 hours, then I change my assumption of what is life and what is living all about. What is easy living? Easy living is just be at peace. Easy living is to be in bliss. Another misconception or assumption that we make is happiness is when you're on a high. You're excited and you're laughing loudly and you're screaming your head off and you're drunk or you're, on a roller coaster ride and you got all sorts of adrenaline gushing into you, And we think that that's when we're happy. But actually, if we see what happens after that is the energy of the soul drops very quickly. It gets a high and then it drops. It depletes. And so a sign to show that that's not sustaining, that's not normal. It's going against. And so the addiction to that adrenaline is what I need to understand. That is what depletes the person, the soul inside. And when I realize that that's also not a state to stay in constantly every day, then I begin to understand the balance. That not too peaceful, that takes you into depression when you stay so quiet and lonely and isolated, but yet not too excited and too extreme into stimulation. That you actually deplete your energy and go in balance, but right in the middle. And where I'm in the middle, there's one word that I'd like to really, use today: open. Just be in the middle, be open. And that openness allows you to explore many treasures, many truths, many secrets that you would have never thought of before. And then you begin to appreciate that, I didn't know this. I was like, wow. And then you begin to have these amazing conversations like, for 20 years I've been thinking like this and today you've actually changed. And I don't need to think like this about you anymore. You're like, whoa. And we didn't know about this for 20 years and you tell us now? That the excitement of being open, and that frees the inner child. It frees the mind, frees the limitations and the blockages that we hold in the subconscious. And so when I begin the journey of being free from assumptions, then I'm on the journey of seeing truth. and seeing happiness and seeing bliss and seeing purity and seeing the being as they are, the way they are, for what they are. And that's called recognition. So that position of recognition is when the conscience is awakened. You then known the world as a humanitarian. You're actually able to serve humanity. You don't take from humanity, you serve. You're a humanitarian, you know. Then all of us then in the planet are in one family. We're in one club, I would say. And there's no boundaries and borders that we create in our mind. Now, one story I'd like to share, which is quite interesting and it quite awakens. Botswana had at one point sold elephants because they've had the largest amount of elephants in the country. And I hope I get the story right, so forgive me if for any reason I get this story wrong, and anyone can correct me, and I'd be very happy. But they had sold these elephants to Angola, and Angola had these elephants because they needed them for their national reserves, for tourism, and etc. And what happened after a while? This is human thinking. This is assumption. What happened? They trotted back to Botswana. Why? Because they felt very at home in the place and they were not in familiar territory in Angola. Now, did they need a border or a passport to go through? No. They just knew their way back to a territory that was familiar. And so human mind, and we hold things, yet if you see the animals, they're free. They don't have borders in their mind. They don't have limits that we place. And so what are the limits and borders and boundaries we in our mind set that create a lot of sorrow for us? And ask the self, to what extent do I need to work on removing those limits, and how do I work towards it? And then I'm free from sorrow of assumptions. I'm free from that pain of assumptions. I'd like to come to also food. This was a very interesting one, which I discovered a few years back. And it was on a YouTube, and it was on oil-free diet. Very interesting. And the chap that was promoting oil-free food was saying that, isn't it interesting how mothers can, market the food with oil, saying, put more oil in the food and it tastes better. It'll taste more better. Put more butter, more cream, or put more fat, and it'll be more tasty, and people will eat. And he then said, well, take the spoon of oil and just drink it. Just drink that spoon of oil. What does it taste like? It doesn't have any taste. And so it's not the oil that makes the taste. It's actually the ingredients, the spices, the salt and the sugar, and those ingredients that have the taste, that makes the food tasty. And so the more oil you put, the more butter you put, right? The more spices you will have to put to increase the taste. So that's why it's tasty, because you put too much of the spices when you put too much oil. And so imagine if you didn't put any oil and you just put spices, you would put less spices because it was more tasty, and less oil because the taste is easily recognized and experienced. So it was like an eye-opener. It's like, yeah, that's true. That makes sense. And so if you want to economize, best way to economize and stay healthy. So beliefs and assumptions, they break when you study. So keep exploring, keep studying, keep really awaken and open to newness. Be curious, you know. And so, whatever thoughts you create around anything, it will affect your mind, it will affect your body. Someone said, well, if you have certain amounts of, you know, food out, and you kind of say, well, this person has made this and that person has made that, then immediately a person will think, well, I'm not having that because that person X, Y, and Z, right? And if you market something and say, well, this company's made it, you'll think, well, it should be good. And you eat it and you feel good. Same item somebody else has made, different, you know, feedback and experience. It really is in our mind, isn't it? It's really how we've conditioned ourselves into thinking it. Yeah. So our beliefs get created because of the mindset that we place in our intellect. And so careful why we, really encourage meditation at the Brahma Kumaris centers around the world, and especially here in Wembley in a space, is so that you are able to have a calm mind in order to awaken the intellect so that you can see, so that you can listen to your third eye, your conscience, your third eye, your wisdom of third eye awakens. And so then you can actually decide clearly. And then truth is easy to follow. Truth is then easily executed in action and in words. And of course, then peace is your foundation. And when you're able to meditate, meditation means what? Meditatio in Latin, to heal on one level, but also it's the ability to allow the mind to connect. I connect with my own self. I connect with the divine, with the higher power, and I then connect with the elements, the 5 elements, the earth, fire, water, air, wind, which the body is made up of. And I'm in that connection, I'm aligned. And these are the 3 eternal. So when I stay in that connection, and then I'm aligned, I can then see from a basis of truth. And so meditation is a way to help me to be balanced and open and can see that which you haven't seen before. And so working towards breaking free from the limits of age and the limits of color, the limits of clothes, the limits of religion, the limits of borders and boundaries, and limits of religion, limits of government, and limits of ways of governing, and limits of culture, and limits of tradition, and all these limits that we place, just becoming free from them. And then watch your relationships. They flourish, They really flourish. And what struck me was my relationship with Daddy Janki, a senior yogi who's passed away now, but she had a great impact in my life. And one of the things that I realized when she took me for a walk when I was 19 in Oxford at our retreat center that we have here is she made me feel like as if she was a friend. And yet an 80-year-old with a 19-year-old, how was that possible? I thought that old people or elderly people, that was my assumption, elderly people always talk down at you because they know everything more than you. That was my assumption. She broke that assumption the minute I held her hand. I thought, oh, she's talking like a friend to me. It's like, oh, you're not talking down at me. And I never forgot that till today. And actually, even our normal friends who are schoolmates, and they talk down at me too. So she was the best friend ever. It was better than a normal friend also. You know? I mean, like, how cool was that? And that broke totally the ice of how old people were in my mind. So sometimes when we hold assumptions that our parents are like this, and elderly like this, authority figures are like this, or young people are like this, and children are like that, and when we hold those assumptions, it's quite difficult life, isn't it? And so always aim to try and break those boundaries that you set in your mind and become free. And God's company helps us also. When we talk to God every day, and at night especially, and early in the morning, we have these chats. They also help. They also create that energy to break free from the limits and pains and sorrows that we hold. And so then side effects begin to just become an exploration. And it's like, okay, this is the effect I have. I need to now work on changing it and transforming. Because I deeply believe when you change how you feel inside, have you noticed you look differently? Yeah? You'd hardly go in front of a mirror when you get angry. Do you? Do you like to go in front of the mirror when you look angry? Or when you feel so sad, so lonely, or so upset, or so irritated? You never feel like going to. Have you noticed? It's quite interesting, really. And if you by chance notice, I mean, you just don't want to look at yourself. And forget even a mirror. I mean, just put a CCTV camera and look at yourself from that position every day. And think, oh my God, is that how I look for others? Oh my goodness. Others look at you the whole time, but you never look at yourself. So meditation is an art to detach and observe yourself the way you are. And you'll suddenly like, oh. And when somebody's taking a photograph of you, suddenly like kind of step out, isn't it? So it's interesting how we have to every day keep awareness of how we feel, how we look, how we actually conduct our inner feeling. That's the biggest mirror. Then you don't need to worry about how you dress and how you make up and which clothes and which label and which shop you buy what from and what will the community think, and if you don't change your colors, and you don't need to go into all that stress. The biggest stress you need to become free from is how you feel. Get that right. Then afterwards do your outer costume. Do your inner one first. Then the outer you will do less work. You don't need to invest too much. No, less expense. More glory and splendor inside your heart. So keep aiming to feel good. And sometimes you wonder, well, is meditation the only way to feel good? No, there are many other ways too. Go and do some nice exercises. Go into beautiful parks or beautiful places with beautiful people that you feel good with. Do some good activity, some community activity. And if you can't do community activity, look at your neighbors and see what they could like you to do and what would you like to do for them. Do something good. You'll feel good. So this good factor thing is very important. Right? So meditation is one very powerful method. But if that doesn't work, because maybe you don't feel meditative enough, that's okay. Find something that you can focus on so that you can move your physical energy and shift it to make you feel good. That it's safe, that it's healthy. So I think I'll stop here. And yes, open to questions and comments.
Thank you, sister. I'm just wondering what to ask, because you've touched upon the whole big avenue of topics and subjects. And it's very fascinating to it's like eye-opening to just understand that everything we do is influenced by assumptions. Whilst you're talking about all the topics like the identity crisis, or maybe the, I think the root cause of all problems is assumption. Anything that's happening out there in the world, or in my world, or within me, the root cause is assumption. What is the root cause of assumption?
It's a good question. What comes to mind is anything that I think of that's happened in the past. To know that it's past, it doesn't mean that it's going to come in the same way in the present. It's finished. Maybe the person that age and you at that age, at that time, felt like that. But time has passed and, many things have changed. Both sides have learned so much. We are moving, we're growing. So where we are growing and moving, we need to be open in the present to understand that, past really doesn't exist except in my mind. So basis of assumption is really you're holding on to the past. And also fear of the future. That's our foundation, that, what if they do it again and, they did it 10 years ago and another 10 years time it'll happen again because that's their trend. So we in our mind already fix it. And you know what? In 10 years time it does happen again because you decided to think it. So when we assume it's about the future and the past that you have not seen, and you have no control of what is done, you cannot change it ever. Even God can't change it. If I understand that, I begin to focus in the now.
It's more about practicing being in present and operating from that space, that this moment is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of what's going to happen the next moment or what already has happened in the previous moment, but this moment is like free from everything and coming from that space of being in now. That sounds very nice and very interesting, but when it comes to practical, it's easier said than done. I'm just being very honest and open. And there's a very thin line, like you said, you gave the example of the elephants going back to their territory. So being in present is a new territory for me. Very nice ambience and everything is nice, but I don't feel at home because I don't know how to deal with it, because I have not practiced it enough, or I'm not used to being in present. So it's very easy for me to go back into my territory from where I had come from. So what would you suggest that is easier for me to break that habit of going back to my own territory?
Very good question. One of the most easiest tips I would give to come into the present is first try to be present in the physical. Like we're sitting here, and whoever's watching, the viewers online, the chair that you're sitting on, and your feet are on the carpet or the floor. Do you feel that first? And then the temperature of the room, you can feel that. And then the smell, the fragrances, and then the sounds. And if you really go silent, you can listen for that clock ticking. Traffic. People. Then go inside and you can feel your heart beating and your lungs breathing. Breathe in and breathe out. And you're here. And so that's a very simple tip to become grounded and present. And you can do that as many times you set for yourself to do it. Here at the Brahma Kumaris, we every hour have 1 minute instrumental music being played in our centers. And that's the time that we do that type of practice, where we just remind ourselves to come back into the present. And in that awareness, we create one thought. And then we create that one thought, who am I? I am a beautiful being of peace. I am. That's in the present. I am. And I'm a beautiful point of light radiating in the middle of my forehead. And I'm here in this costume, in this body. And you become centered already. Then you come to the next scene.
Thank you. This beautiful exercise that we just did. And it's very interesting that when we are doing this exercise with ourselves, that very moment is a moment of freedom. And you were talking about being open. And that really gives a feel. I'm sure everybody who's doing with me in this room and online are having the same experience. That in that moment, there is that element of freedom. There is absolute stillness. And that allows me to have a different vision, a different perception towards things. And I really want to try to see things differently. But what comes in my way sometimes is my experience. Like say, for example, if I am dealing with a particular person or in a particular environment, work environment, I am used to and I know how the system works, how people work, what are their patterns, and I've experienced that over a period of time. And if there is a situation that comes in front of me, I know this person is going to do exactly this. Now, is this my assumption? Or before even that person is about to tell something or about to do, you just see them walking towards you and the stillness is gone. Let me be honest, right? There's everybody's laughing and smiling here because I think you're able to relate to what I'm saying, and you know that I'm sure this person is actually coming towards me for so-and-so thing. So I'm assuming it or I'm coming from experience? What's the thin line? Because you spoke about conditional thinking as well. Now, is conditional thinking right or wrong? I don't know. But the thin line between my experiences and assumption, and is it possible that if I practice what you're saying or what you're sharing with us today, I can change my experiences, or that person can change their response?
Such a good question. And yes, we've all been through there, and we're also every day facing that challenge. Nobody is free from it, I can say. But we can get better at it, definitely. We all know the people in our lives who press our buttons, right? We know when they call us how we feel. We know before even we press the call button how we're going to feel. And so how do you deal with that is your question, isn't it? Well, the method that I particularly use for my own self is the morning time meditation. I focus it because I know that during the day I'm going to face X, Y, and Z. It's the ones that I know, not the ones that I don't know who's going to call or, come in from front of me. But for them, I know that I would need to do this, this, and this today. And for that, I would need to face this and this, experience. But not only that, I need to respond to this person today. I need to call this person today. I need to talk to this person, even though I may not want to. And I know the reaction that I'll get when I have to go through this. So where these thoughts and feelings come early in the morning, you actually work through them. And so I visualize. I also bring that experience that I might have and create it. And then in my visualization, I dissolve it. I just say to myself, well, cut that feeling away. It doesn't exist. I'm creating that feeling. It doesn't exist. And all I feel is when I talk, they will be in the right space. When I talk, I am in the right space. I will say the right thing. And this is what I want to say. And this is how I want to say it. So I visualize and I practice if it's the difficult ones in my life.
Is it about reprogramming yourself?
Yes, it is. It is reprogramming the subconscious before I actually physically go. And you know what? Because I've done the work already in my mind, it's far easier when it comes to picking up the phone or going to the office or going to the place where this person is. I've done half the work of eliminating the fear and the experience in my mind. And so my energy and my vibration in the body and my mind are different. So changing that is very important. You know?
Would you say that, I'm just understanding from what you're sharing right now, that assumption actually starts with myself? Like I am assuming a lot about myself? Like I would feel so and so. Again, I'm going in future. I haven't actually heard that person. I haven't even seen what that person is about to share. I've just thought I've created that. So one, I'm assuming about my own nature, about my own behavior. And that's where the key is to shift. Then everything outside would shift. Because in your sessions, you spoke about, we do a lot of assumptions about ourselves, the exterior, how I'm dressed, how I look, the color of my skin, and about other people as well, but it starts from myself. And maybe I know I have so-and-so phobia, so I'm assuming things, my nature. And then you spoke about assuming about my own emotions, that my emotions, like happiness. So my happiness is dependent on so and so. So constantly, I'm in a state of assumptions from the moment I open my eyes till I close my eyes. And there too, I'm thinking whether I'll get a good sleep or not, because of so and so. So there's a constant assumptions that's taking place. And then you talk about centering your mind. Can you give us an experience?
Yes. I mean, it's at this time and this place here in London, it's 7:30. It's our traffic control time, and we can,
That's
center.
why I stopped.
let's center ourselves here at this moment and see how we can come into the present. And so let's focus on changing our feeling of heaviness into lightness. Just go inside, being present here. Is there any part of your body that is tensed? Just feel which part is heavy and which part is holding on to any tension. Is it your shoulders? Is it your legs? Is it your waist? Is it your chest? But if it is, just let go. Stretch your ankles, your feet, your fingers. Just release it. Let go of whatever you're holding on to inside you. Take a deep breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. And maybe you want to rotate your head so you can release all your tension. And just sit relaxed. And in this space, I create this beautiful thought. I am a being eternal, shining light, so bright, so light, that I can feel the rays from the middle of my forehead radiating in all dimensions into this entire room. I feel the beauty of it, happiness, the lightness, and the calm. And the security and the comfort. And having felt this, I begin to recognize that all my brothers and sisters in the world are also light. They are also a being of light eternal, just like me. And all I need to do is remind myself of this eternal spiritual connection. Together we are all one, connected to the divine, that higher being, who is the ocean of all qualities, the source of all goodness. And when I choose to remember, I get fueled and remain aware, alert. And in this space, I have the power to discern from good energies and bad energies. From good influences to bad influences. And I'm able to be the transformer. Om Shanti. Om means I am, a soul, point of light, and Shanti means peace.
Shanti. Thank you, Sister Kanan, for this wonderful meditation experience, which allowed us to connect to ourselves and also go beyond time, beyond the pendulum that we are always in the past and the future. And also that helped us to create that balance that we wanted in our day-to-day life, and bring clarity. As you mentioned, that clarity is the antidote to assumption. Because when you know something, there is clarity, it's easier to know the truth. So there is no assumptions. And that would allow us to get rid of side effects of assumptions, which is categorically pain and sorrow and our relationship, the suffering that we experience. So thank you for your wonderful wisdom that you shared with us today. And I'm sure everyone who's listening online and who's present in house, there's a lot of wisdom and clarity that has come to us through this session. But if anybody has any final question that they would want to ask Sister Kanan, who are present in your or online, feel free to ask. Anyone wants to ask? So maybe Sister Kanan, you can sum up the final words that you would want our viewers to know. And maybe categorically, I've said few, pain, sorrow, and suffering, but how do I identify, because I'm so used to assume things, that this is assumption.
One more thing I'd like to just, bring up that I've also forgotten, but there's in COVID times that making it present at the moment. It's like as if the world had become one. Everyone went back to their homes and everybody operated from home, domestic thinking, patterning. And suddenly relationships began to be, important and iron out all the relationship issues that we've had in, the families in the world. But if you can think about it, that what are the reasons for fights and quarrels in relationships? And one of them, big one, is because of financial issues. And in COVID, many didn't get jobs and many lost their jobs. But also we found that, we saw many did get big jobs and they found themselves having new jobs in their homes and online ways and means of getting monetary, means. But if you can think about it, if I can break free from my limit of poverty consciousness and think abundant, that I am a child of God and God is the creator and He would never wish the creation to be any less. And if I have this awareness that, well, obviously He would have taken care of me and obviously He's going to take care of me, I just need to trust and have faith that I will be fine. And when that faith and trust comes, things begin to happen for me. But it's when I lose hope and I lose and get disheartened and I think someone's going to take my job or someone's going to, do something that I'm going to be in loss. If I have fear and create it, that also happens. And so if I have these slight thoughts, let me make effort to change them. Let me make effort to realize, well, I am a child of God and I will always get when I need and it will come to me. And that gives positive motivation to the self, And so where there are frustrations and assuming that, okay, rich people are supposed to be like this and poor people are supposed to be like this, or when I have finance, I'm like this, and when I don't have finance, I'm not going to be like that, I'll be like that. All these limitations that we hold, about these issues, they transform, And so the soul becomes poor when it begins to become influenced by the vices of lust, ego, greed, attachment, anger. This is what makes the world poor. And the soul becomes rich when it finds the method to overcome them and take God's help, divine help, to empower the virtues and qualities in me by performing good actions, using them consciously, and the value of the soul increases then. And when that value increases, your self-worth increases because your feeling of that increases. So that's when you're spiritually rich. you're wealthy, that's when you're healthy, and that's when you're happy. So where you understand this philosophy, then even if you have just 10 pounds with you, but you will feel like you have 10 million pounds with you. Because for that, you can then feel good about that 10 pounds. But if you are feeling the opposite, and you're not in that state, then those 10 pounds, you could have 10 million pounds, and you can still feel like you have nothing and it's not enough. So it is your mindset. You can still finish those 10 million in 1 year and become poor again. So deeply, how you think about money is also important. How you think about, your beliefs around money and finance is important, because that also has a counter effect on your relationships and the way you trust and have faith in yourself and the other. Big impact. And how to communicate, finally. How do I voice? That's hard. I know, I think, I feel, but how do I speak? Some people have big issues communicating and expressing. And so those are the areas where I need to break my assumptions and limits and barriers. And so ask yourself, it's a beautiful topic to explore. What are the limits and beliefs and assumptions I still place on myself today about all these areas in my life? And so write them down. How do I think about money? How do I think about people? How do I think about food? How do I think about situations? How do I think about myself, my self-image? How do I think about my clothes? How do I think about other people's clothes? You have to create your chart of what you are creating assumptions on to see what you need to break free from. And then hold that as a reference for yourself to transform. And God's blessings will always be with you because you've recognized. Beautiful feeling to know that God knows that, we're not so perfect at this stage in the drama. But all He wants to see is how honest can we be about it and real about it. That if I'm making my honest effort to change and to see and perfect, He's very happy. Because once you're in denial, it's hard to change. So break free from those, blind spots that we hold in our life. And a blessing for you all. You always remain in the present and be aware and open and curious to learn the secrets of the secrets every day. Om Shanti.
Thank you and Om Shanti once again for the wonderful awareness that through assumption, the soul becomes poverty-stricken. That's the major side effect of assumption, and how breaking through it can make me spiritually rich. So thank you for the wonderful evening that you spent with us today, Sister Kanan, and whatever she was sharing. There's a wonderful book called Who Rules Your Life, and a CD which has guided meditation, Center the Mind. So on your way out, you could explore things in the shop or online as well. And see you all next week, the same time, Tuesday, with a wonderful topic, I think, again, which we all could relate, is going beyond trauma. We all have experienced trauma in one way or another, how we can see beyond and go beyond trauma. That is going to happen next Tuesday, 21st of June. And on 22nd, Wednesday, we have a special event. We've got a great panel, which we were planning to have a few months ago, but it got postponed, and it's happening next week, 22nd of June. The title is Visions of the Future, Hope, Healing, and Happiness. And we've got a wonderful panel of faith leaders and the community leaders. We've got the Bishop of Westminster, the Imam, the Rabbi, Sister Jayanti, and we'll have some musical evening as well. So you all are most welcome in person. Those who are used to listen to us online, you're again welcome to come in person, and everyone who is in person are welcome to come as well and join us that evening. The timings for Wednesday is 5:45. 5:45 to 6:15 would be networking and arrivals, and the program would start at 6:15 on Wednesday. So those who are joining online, you can tune in at 6:15. Thank you and have a wonderful evening back home. Om Shanti.